Oh, boy. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Let's Play Ghosts and Goblins, one of the most annoying games I've ever had the pleasure of playing? Question mark? Welcome to Ghosts and Goblins, where our hero Arthur just got cock-blocked by Satan, and that is not a joke, that is basically the actual plot. Originally an arcade game released, I want to say, 1986 or 7, it got an NES port, and let me tell you, this is probably one of the hardest games I've ever played. It's a fairly standard concept game, it's basically a left-to-right platformer, it's just the fact that there's so much in your way. Arthur is also not a very healthy knight. He can only take 2 hits. The first one will destroy your armor, the second one will completely evaporate any kind of meat or organs on Arthur. Thankfully, the early stages of the game are actually not that bad, though it does have this guy. This is the red armor, and he's annoying. He is going to be the most annoying thing you're going to fight in the game, more or less, since he actually has a pretty complex flight pattern. Also, this is the map of the world. You see this every time you die. It's actually pretty cool that they do that. Now, in terms of something I'm going to be doing for this playthrough, as you just saw there, whenever I die, I'm going to be jump cutting back to where I died. Because otherwise I'll just be here for, well, forever, honestly. Like most games, there are ways for you to restore your health, though. Every now and then you'll find sections like if you jump right to here, it'll drop another armor. That's the way that this game works. Since it was originally an arcade game, it has arcade game secrets. Items hidden all over the place of various types. Like, if you crouch here, there's a red flashing Yasichi, because, you know, Capcom game. You don't want to grab this. It only gives you 100 points and reduces your time at the top left by 30 seconds. If the time reaches 0, you die. Which is annoying. There's also various kind of point droppers, because most of which look like types of armor. And you can tell whenever you're going to find one of those just by doing that. Also, jumping there gets us a normal Yasaichi, which I believe is 5,000 points. Money bags are another 500 points. It's fairly standard. There are various weapons you can get in the game, but you always start with the lance, which is one of Arthur's best, honestly. You can't have too many on screen at a time, but they're better than most other weapons. And it's very useful here against this boss, the unicorn. Don't get why it's a unicorn, but okay. Just mash the B button. The unicorn only has 3 attacks to either rush towards you, to jump, or to fire a fireball, which you can duck under. Also, with that note, Arthur does not control very well. His left to right isn't that bad, but very often he'll get stuck in his duck position, and it just feels awkward. He's very sluggish. Plus, this game is the definition of an NES jump, where when you press the jump button and you're holding a direction, you're not going back the opposite direction. You are stuck going that way. It's basically the same thing as Castlevania. Every now and then you will find one of those magic pots that has a little Arthur head like that, and what that is an extra life. There's only like 2 or 3 of them in the entire game, and you could go for them, but honestly, they aren't even that worth it in the long run. Why? Ghosts and Goblins works on Castlevania logic. You have limited lives, but infinite continues. So, say, if I die here and get a game over, I can start right here. And even then, as long as there are checkpoints, you will start at your most recent checkpoint. Since I just got a game over, I'm going to be resuming at the start of that blue section as soon as I hit the continue option here on the main menu. Don't get used to checkpoints though. Later on in the game, they do stop appearing. I want to say it's stage 5? That sounds about right. Either way, even though we're not going to be seeing me use a lot of them for a long time, the other weapons that Arthur has in the game, there's a tomahawk, which is the most useless thing in the game because you can only have one on screen at a time, if I recall, and they move really slowly in a straight line. There are the torches, slash fire, slash whatever the hell they are, which you can have 2 on at a... Oh, actually, no, you can have as many as you want on screen at a time. However, they touch the ground, they burst into flames, and those flames do damage enemies, but the flames linger in such a way that you can't throw any more if they're already on screen. We'll see that later on. There is the dagger, which is the most useful thing in the game. If you find it, hold on to it as long as you goddamn can. Because it's basically the lance in terms of damage, but it's faster, and you can have more on screen at a time. Also, these goblins suck. These are the worst enemies that... Well, actually, I think they're ogres, technically. But they are the worst enemies in the game because not only do they just take a lot of hits, I think they take 8 or 9, but they run towards you and they have pretty annoying projectiles. Also, they look to have a sailor tattoo on their forearm. Now, I try to show a lot of the secrets off in the early game, but later on, it's just not worth remembering because more often than not, they're either just points or traps. Like, one I don't get to show off here is if you go towards where I'm heading now, this corner right here, and you jump and you don't have armor, an armor will drop for you. Now, as for why I decided to play this game, even though I said I was doing a nice little series first, the series requires this game to understand who we're playing in this other series. You'll see what I mean up and coming. Also, I hate this next section. There's a lot of ogres in that little closed-in wall, which you can kill them from the other side, but it's really annoying. What I tend to do when I'm not trying to keep my armor on is I go to the top floor and wait for one of these birds to spawn, and I want them to hit me while I'm facing the left, because if they hit me at the right altitude, the knockback from Arthur getting hit will send me over the wall, and I'll just land right where that little black space is in between these buildings. Either way, we're actually coming up with something interesting. You might remember we saw the Yasaichis earlier, the red flashing ones and the normal ones. There's also a very rare, like there's only one or two of in the game, called the, which is a white flashing Yasaichi, rather. And the first, and I think one of maybe two in the game, is coming up here. We want to ride one of these platforms all the way to the top, in which case it'll drop on that floor to the right. It usually spawns when I'm on that elevator, but not this time. Also, Arthur has weird momentum. I tried to move right there, I couldn't. If you just walk off a ledge, he just falls straight down. There it is. These are not only they're 100 points, but they also add a minute to your clock. They're basically there in case you took too long in a previous section. They don't get that generous later on. Also, this is the only other stage we're going to hear it in, so I'm going to make a comment on this now. But this game's soundtrack is actually really good. The main theme, which is the Haunted Graveyard here, which plays in all the other Ghosts and Goblins games, especially Super Ghouls and Ghosts, is just fantastic. Either way, we're now at the boss for this stage, which is not one, but two unicorns. Don't walk too far to the right, otherwise you'll spawn them both, and that won't end well for anyone. I forget what my end death total is, by the way, for the game. So if you're paying attention, just count my deaths for me, because I didn't feel like doing that. It would take too long. Stage 3 is where things start changing up, and the fact that, first off, you need to get another weapon here. Something that I think the NES version added, I don't think this was in the arcade version, was that some bosses are immune to certain weapons. The unicorn is immune to the only weapon we haven't seen yet, or at least I haven't talked about yet. And the boss for this stage is immune to lances. I don't know why that is, but it's that way. Avoid the torch like the plague, but if you have to take it, because it's better than nothing. It's definitely better than the tomahawk. Yeah. Either way, let's go over this game's story, because there is one in the manual, even though it's not much more in-depth than what we saw at the start of the game. Our beautiful princess is kidnapped. Her lover, the knight in his shining armor, is armed with 5 different weapons. The knight must pass through 7 gates, each guarded by an evil demon. As the knight destroys the evil enemy demons, a key appears from the sky. This key opens the next gate. At the 7th and final gate, your skill enables the knight to engage in hand-to-hand combat with the devil. Defeat the devil, and the beautiful princess is rescued. Each time the knight is hit with enemy firepower, he loses a suit of armor. The second straight hit kills the knight. Through every scene there are jars which hide the 5 weapons for the knight. How very bland, Capcom. Come on, you went in depth with the Mega Man manuals, but now you're doing this? How pathetic. Also, level 3 kinda sucks because there's a lot of red armors. Also, if you're looking at the map, yeah, we're already in stage 3 of 6. There's technically 7 stages, but there's only 6 real ones. And I will say, this game is short. It was an arcade game, so it kind of needed to be. Also, I just killed that armor off screen, because it took me too long to do it otherwise. But because of that, this game is very short. It's a 1-part LP for a reason. It was originally going to be 2 parts, but then I realized one part's 13 minutes, the other 9. Also, in certain parts, you'll also find a king, which is 10,000 points. However, be wary of the king icons, because there's one that also turns you into a frog. You'll know that one's different just because it flashes red a bit more. So watch out for that. Thankfully, this stage is actually good for one thing, and that's training you on how to fight red armors. Because if you're paying attention, you can learn how to fight them pretty easily. Especially if you learn that you're jumping away from them while facing towards them is really good to kill them with. But, yeah, this place can be kind of annoying. That is a frog king, do not touch it. There are other secrets in this stage, like there's an armor I didn't get to show off, even though there's also an armor here. But like I said, it's just not worth showing off because there's either too many enemies that way or you can't backtrack. I do sadly need to grab the torch, however, because the boss of this stage is immune to the lances. And get used to seeing this boss, because like the unicorn, we're going to see it a bit more than usual. The dragon. The dragon's interesting in the fact you can actually destroy the sections on its back, and doing so will actually still give you points, but it doesn't make the boss any easier other than the fact that the hitbox gets smaller. The thing you actually want to damage is the head. It might not sound like you're doing damage, but you are doing damage. And here you really get to see the main problem with the torch, as you saw there. Also, I just cut to killing him, because I think I only had 1 HP left on him anyway. When you throw the torch, when it's lingering on the ground, you cannot throw any more than what you already had. That's really annoying. Welcome to stage 4, which is the shortest stage in the game, and also probably the easiest, aside from the first one. Why? There aren't too many enemies, though if you hesitate, you will die there. Because the first half of this stage, because every stage is divided in half, is just this. And I should mention, in the case you get a game over past a checkpoint, you will still load in past that checkpoint. Also, you can go get that life, but you have to backtrack up the platforms afterwards, so it's not really worth it in my eyes. So say, like, if I think it even happens to me here, I think. If I game over on the bridge just after this red armor, I will start at this bridge. And here's the last item type, the shield / the cross. It's actually my second favorite weapon in the game. It doesn't have the best range, because the dagger goes all the way across the screen, but it has high rapid fire, and it can also be used to destroy projectile attacks. So it's an outright shield. And if you can get one of these, like that guaranteed one I just got here, hold on to it for as long as you can, honestly. Because you're going to need it eventually. I'll go over why in a few moments. This stage, though, is more annoying in the fact that there's just so much trying to kill you. There's a lot of these blue demons. However, thankfully, as I mentioned before, it's mercifully short. Also, there's a frog king here, but if you jump somewhere on this part of the screen, you will actually make a real king show up, and that's a 10,000 points for you if you want to do it. Honestly, points aren't worth it in the long run, but they're there. Honestly, I look like I'm kicking this game's ass, and to an extent I am, but that's only because I've played it a decent chunk. This game used to be way more punishing in my eyes, but that's just because I've gotten used to it. Plus, if you haven't figured it out by this point, I'm not a big rager in games. I generally play games not only very well, but if I'm not playing them well, I generally realize that it's my fault that things are screwing up. Don't get me wrong, this game still has a fair amount of bullshit in it, especially in terms of enemy spawns or, God, Arthur's controls, but I'm used to it at this point. Let's put it like this, I think I've only gotten angry at a game once, maybe twice in the past year and a half. And now we're on to stage 5. In my eyes, this is where the game really starts to get annoying. Since from here on out, no more checkpoints if I recall. Thankfully, the stages aren't the longest from here on out, but they're easily the most annoying in terms of enemies. Starting off, we don't have anything too troublesome here. We have blue demons that just fire projectiles, the forest ghosts, and even skeletons which are those little skulls that I keep on destroying. But, get used to dying at this point. Thankfully, they still can be a bit kind, because in this stage in particular, they put in armor directly in your path, but this is the point where the game really just starts to get annoying. That's the tomahawk. Avoid the tomahawk at all costs. And plus, if I recall, the boss of this level is immune to it anyway, so stay away from it. Also, there's red armor there, but you can just completely ignore them in order to get this extra life, so, what's the point? I guess for people who don't realize you can just go up and around, but, My first playthrough of this game, stages 5 and 6 are what took me the longest to begin with. But, to put it in perspective, the combined total for this game, including deaths I entirely edited out when I was trying to get back to where I was previously, took me about somewhere between an hour and a half and 2 hours. It's edited down to 22 minutes. That's not good. But comparatively, my first playthrough of this game, I was on stage 5 for an hour and a half and stage 6 for 2 hours. Stage 5 and 6 are not very fun. Let's put it like this, I'm pretty sure now that I'm gonna be done with this commentary soon, I'm probably never gonna go back to this game again, because Ghosts and Goblins is not a horrible game, it's just horribly misbalanced against you. Things want you dead. And in the game storyline, that makes sense, because these are actual demons of hell, but when you're trying to make a game, you can't go this outright difficult without sacrificing some playability. There's a reason when it comes to Ghosts and Goblins games, I'll go back to Super Ghouls and Ghosts or Ultimate Ghosts and Goblins on the PSP first. Because not only are those games more approachable just in terms of difficulty, but they're also just better designed around the difficulty. Plus, they have more ways for Arthur to fight back. Also, that ghost cry is really annoying. Either once you're here, you're basically at the end of the stage. Just jump up here and you can find the man who took away our princess himself, Satan. Satan is a very easy boss fight. I'd even say the easiest of the three, because this is his only pattern. Fire 1 or 2 shots, then dive back around. That was it. Why we couldn't kill him when he kidnapped the princess, I don't know. And now we're on to stage 6, which is without a doubt the worst one in the game. First off, they do some really kind stuff in it, though. I will agree to that. Because first off, right at the start, as you can see on the top there, there's a unicorn. This is essentially this game's boss rush stage. However, you need to grab this lance if you don't have something like the dagger. Why? Say, like in the case of the shield, you have something that it's immune to, they give you a weapon it's not immune to. The weapon immunity system I still think is kind of stupid in the long run, but at least they did that. Next up is the Durgan, the third one in the game. You really should be tired of fighting this thing by now. And it drops a shield, which I recommend grabbing, because you need it to beat this, to access the next stage. Why? Gameplay. I guess because it's technically the cross. But yeah, this stage is really annoying. The bosses are honestly the easiest part of it, because the biggest pain in the ass about this stage is that, as we'll see later on, the normal enemies get really dickish. There's a lot of red armors, and there's one particular floor that's just a red armor. No, a red armor on either side of you. By the way, there's an armor right here. And then there's a goblin. Or, not a goblin, an ogre. And that's annoying. Also, avoid that torch at all costs. These are probably the most annoying ogres in the game, purely because you actually have to go up there. Unlike the ones back in Stage 2, who you can mostly avoid just by taking the high route. Something that I think plays into the frustration with the later levels in the game as well is just the fact that the music is nowhere near as interesting. Because the Haunted Graveyard theme really is the best song in the game. Not only the fact that it just sounds the best, but it's also the most energetic. Like, this song is way more foreboding, because, you know, you're supposed to be close to Satan's lair and such, but I kind of prefer it when the endgame music for a game like this is higher energy than previously. Also, I just killed those red armors off screen, because really, that screen's annoying. Avoid all these weapons, because, as I mentioned, you need the shield / the cross for what's coming up. And what's the boss for this stage? Satan again. But like the second stage, there's now 2 of them. There's 2 Satans in a row. Do not walk too far right, otherwise you'll fight them both at the same time. And let me tell you, that doesn't go so well. Satan's big issue on pattern-wise against him is the fact that he doesn't go low enough to hit you more often than not. He just kind of flies to be menacing, and that's kind of stupid. Honestly, for the last major stage boss, it's kinda stupidly easy. And for beating him when you have the shield, the key still shows up, but we're also allowed to progress to the next stage. If you didn't have the shield, you'd be sent back to the beginning of stage 6. And now we're on to what's technically the last stage, stage 7. And it's just a boss fight against, who's later known as Astaroth. In the manual, he's called, like, Satan. Or Devil. Either way, another one. And it's basically a Street Fighter battle. You're moved left and right, but you're always facing right, and you need to hit his lower abdomen 10 times to beat him. That was it. This room is an illusion and is a trap devised by Satan. Go ahead dauntlessly. Make rapid progress. What does that mean? Well, the thing is about the main Ghost and Goblins games is that more often than not, to get the real ending, you need to go through the game twice. That's what's happening here. We're back in stage 1. I need to play through all 6 stages again. However, I'm not going to show all that aside from one thing. The only thing that changes about the level design is enemies themselves. They're more aggressive in that they're faster and they fire more projectiles, like the red armors will now fire 2 bullets, energy beams, instead of 1. The only thing I'm showing along the way is that, hey, look, I got the dagger finally. The dagger's really good, high rapid fire, and goes all the way across the screen. Get this if you can, it's really useful. And now I will be rejoining you back at the double Satan fight on the second playthrough. This is where a majority of my deaths happened on the second run through. Because I remember I counted my deaths. It totaled out at 68, because I remember being annoyed and it was just one too few. The double Satan fight is still really easy, though. In fact, the boss fights barely change at all, aside from the double unicorn fight, because that's more annoying just due to how much more fast they move. It is annoying that they make you do that, but honestly, I've seen other NES games do that. But not like this. Other NES games, because the way that this game works is arcade logic. Whenever you beat the game, you're sent back to the first level with higher difficulty. And that loops infinitely until you just decide to quit it. Castlevania 1 did that, as does this. But I think this is the only game I've played where you're required to do both playthroughs, at least the only series like that. Either way, on the second playthrough, make sure you still have the Cross and Shield to fight Astaroth for the real time. Because this is just an annoying idea. Honestly, the fight isn't even that much harder. I think he fires his bullets a bit more rapidly, but that's about it. Also, weird color palette thing. Because I guess Astaroth has the purple on him, the shield turns purple. This fight's really easy. Congratulations! This story is happy end. Thank you! That is horribly, horribly English. Being the wise and courageous knight that you are, you feel strength welling in your body. Return to starting point, challenge again. Ah, NES game endings. People played for weekends to get you. But that's Ghosts and Goblins. It's okay. Honestly, with the existence of Super Ghouls and Ghosts and other Ghosts and Goblins games, there's no real reason to go back to this. In fact, the only reason I came back to this is so I can give it a bit of a soft intro for what's coming up next. You might remember I said we're doing a bit of a mini-marathon again, similarly to the Metroid mini-marathon. Ladies and gentlemen, we're heading on over to the spin-off starring the Red Armor Firebrand. Next up is all 3 Gargoyles Quest games. Thank you guys for watching, and see you guys then.